views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff and management of WWDB-TV.
Well, if you're ready to go, let's start the show.
Let's go.
Is that our intro music?
I don't know. Yeah.
Shit, next thing you know, we'll be having a theme song and everything.
We got a theme song.
It is.
You haven't watched the show, huh?
No.
Oh, okay. You know who Leonard Cohen is?
Mm-hmm.
It's his song, Everybody Knows. Everybody knows the dice are loaded. Everybody knows the game's fixed, blah, blah, blah.
But yeah, we had something else first, and then, I don't know.
At the beginning of the show is Chuck Mangione's Children of Sanchez.
God, I love him.
Me too.
I have every album he ever put out.
Yeah, me too. And that's what we start the show with, the intro.
But it was something else before that.
You know, so.
Awesome.
And we've started the show in case you haven't figured that out. So.
Oh, okay.
But,
Hi, welcome to Chili's.
Today at the end of the show, I'm going to end the show with Sly and the Family Stone, Everyday People.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good choice.
Yeah, I thought so too. So.
Well,
Anyway.
all right then.
I have some use, so
Yeah.
this is your show today, and I mean that with the most respect I can muster. You know,
Well, last week we were bummed that you weren't here.
because there's so many things that we're trying to talk about or want to talk about, but you know what I mean?
Well,
Those things are still here.
Pardon me?
Those things are still here. We can talk about them.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is that
Well, I have my own personal ways that I relate, like, as a Jew. So what I said last week was essentially the people who are complaining and telling everyone to stay home and respect the president and everything are the same people who I have heard for however long that the Holocaust wouldn't have happened or wouldn't have been so bad if the Jews had fought back and armed themselves and so on and so forth. And that how did the Germans, but don't do that now. And the same people who've said, how could the Germans just stand by and watch this? But, just blindly support Hitler or just let him do what he wants to do, but we're not now supposed to
me,
stand up to the
honestly,
president.
It's
and
always
so,
the same concept as what they talk about with the cops. It's like, so if you're a good cop and you want to stop somebody, you're probably going to get fired. You're certainly going to get ostracized.
the woman who
Remember Serpico?
Yeah.
They tried to kill Serpico.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you look at stuff like that, you can understand why the average German was like,
yeah.
So I get it. I get it. I get why there are people that are quiet, they're silent, and don't want to say anything. But
well,
still,
we're being told that we're not supposed to, and that you have to respect the president and don't.
No. You have to.
I would
respect
love to
the
have
office.
a president I respected.
You have to
That'd
respect
be
the
awesome.
office.
Right, respect the office of
So
the
you-
president
Okay, but
and
here,
don't.
so my question to both of you is, why would they tell me that I have to respect the office when the man that's in the office does not respect the office?
You're preaching to the choir.
So
I mean,
that would be
I-
my question. It's
I
come
agree.
on, man, really?
I agree.
Seriously, when we were in the military, we had guys that were our, higher ranking officers, and they say you have to respect the rank. But there's also provisions in there that if somebody gives you an unlawful order,
Right.
you don't have to
Right.
follow it.
Right.
Well, you're absolutely not supposed to. If you're given an order that's unconstitutional or anything, it is your responsibility
Right.
to not follow that order.
I I just really struggle with that whole concept of people that are afraid to speak up because they're afraid something's going to happen to them. When, say, for example, we're talking about police, okay? I understand you don't want to say anything because I know the consequences they can be grave,
Right.
up to and including you losing your life. But by the same token, if, say, there were only 10% bad cops and that other 90% spoke up, they couldn't do anything to those guys.
Exactly.
You can't do anything to the 90%.
This is what the recent developments that that have bothered me was all the stories about the cops walking off the jobs, and in support of their fellow officers. And I
Right.
understand supporting your fellow officers, but not when they're doing that kind of shit.
But I used to say the same thing when they had police officers that would go on strike because they wanted more money. The
Right.
union would tell them, you can't do that. You gave an oath, and your oath means you're supposed to go out and do your fucking job.
Right.
So when you sit down and call in sick just because
The blue flu.
you want, the blue flu, you want to make a point about
It's
you're not
extortion.
getting paid enough. Not only is it extortion, which is bad enough,
Right.
but you're basically saying my oath doesn't mean anything because me getting more money
Is more
important to me
Yeah.
than the safety of my city.
Right.
That's embarrassing.
Well,
And
and the reason that they're walking out is because they're being held accountable for their actions.
Yes.
And okay, maybe if there is a real investigation, or if you get to the truth, maybe the guy didn't do something wrong. But you have to support the system, or you can't just say, no, he's not guilty.
Well, I saw the perfect post the other day. They were basically saying that you're quitting or you're walking off the job because you don't have faith in the system, and you wonder why people are protesting.
Right.
Like, really?
And the other one was, hey, retail workers are up against, the public all the time. They're getting, yelled at and, picked on and all that stuff, and they're expected to maintain. But here's a guy with a gun, and it's okay. Well, he was threatened.
I've had people spit at me.
Yeah.
I've had people
Yeah, I had that.
try to shoot me, stab me. Really?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, and I think the part that there's a lot of this about police officers that really bothers me. I don't understand.
And you gotta, for those of you who don't remember, you were
Yeah, I was
Metro
a police
cop for
officer
how long?
for 20 years.
20 years. Okay.
I've always wondered about the whole concept, because what we've done is we've made this mythical world that we live in. It's us versus them. Nobody understands the job that police officers go through, and so we always say, well, they don't understand us, and so they have separated themselves more and more and more and more from
Right.
the public and basically from the communities that they serve.
Yeah.
And most police officers don't live in the communities that they serve, so they have no vested interest in what happens to those people one way or the other. It's just
Which I think is a shame.
yeah, we go in and we get our statistics, we do what we got to do, and we're all good to go. And not only that, but we're also okay with padding those statistics by arresting people that shouldn't really be arrested, by inciting them to be violent so we can arrest them for violent crimes. I always go back to the joke, you arrested a guy for resisting arrest. So what were you going to arrest him for?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Right.
So you messed with him until he got pissed off, and then you arrested him for resisting arrest.
Exactly.
That makes no sense. So I look at these things, and we've created this world that we live in where we're either heroes or victims. To me, that's embarrassing. You're saying, oh, the job is so dangerous now, people hate cops. Okay, there's a couple things you need to understand. Number one, when you took that job, when you took that oath, you knew there were going to be people that were going to hate your guts.
Yeah.
Because you
It's
only
not like there's any surprise.
because 80% of the time you're only seeing people at their worst when you have to arrest them, or you have to go to a domestic violence call, or they're fighting or whatever. they're
Right,
drunk.
you're never seeing somebody
on
on the
drugs.
best day of their life.
Right,
and-
right. I mean, that very rarely happens. And the cops that do, I mean, they do a great job, and everybody loves them. But the fact of the matter is, when you swore that oath, you knew there were going to be people that hated you, and it was going to be the majority of them. Even people that normally like cops.
Yeah.
You do something, they're going to be pissed off at you.
Yeah.
So that really bothers me. Now they're saying that they're victims and that people hate the cops, they don't respect the cops. And then you add to that the fact that you know there are bad cops out there. We had bad cops that we knew worked certain areas. And some of my friends have actually posted stuff like that on Facebook about these guys that we used to work with that were hated but nobody did anything about them. Nobody said anything about them. They didn't get disciplinary action. You allowed that shit to keep going on and on and on, and then you wonder why people hate cops. So
You mean specifically like one person, or that
Yeah.
one area has
one specific person.
Okay.
There were more than one, but I'm just talking.
Right, yeah.
I'm just referring to this one guy right now, and so I don't get why you're trying to make yourself. All cops are victims because people hate the cops, but you allowed people to do stuff that you knew was not right, to brutalize people, and you're trying to make it sound like because you didn't do anything about that guy.
Right.
So you allowed that reputation to permeate over all these years. All these police departments had cops that are like that, and these guys got away with it. And
when they did get caught, they just went to work someplace else.
Right. Well, most of the time when they got caught, they might have gotten a slap on the wrist.
Right.
Maybe you got a little paper in your personnel file, which nobody could see because that was another thing that they did.
Right.
Or they had qualified immunity, so you couldn't sue them for it. And a lot of those cops that did stuff that they weren't supposed to do still kept desk jobs. So they were still making the money.
Right, and it's almost impossible to sue
Right.
one
Right.
cop.
And
or-
now states are starting to get rid of qualified immunity,
Right.
which I think is great.
Okay.
I don't understand why cops are so upset that they are now being held accountable. Because if you don't hold people accountable for what they do, if there are no consequences, you have no incentive to be better.
That's right.
As a police officer, as a person. So that makes me crazy. We want to be considered victims because everybody hates cops now, but we're not going to do anything to clean up our reputation or our profession and get rid of the bad cops because we have this snitch culture, which another thing cracks me up. You can't rat out another cop for doing something bad or you'll get ostracized or possibly killed or fired.
But if
see
you're used to not being able to be held accountable for anything,
Right.
then you'd be pissed off when you find out.
So
Exactly.
what do you think about this defund the police that's going around?
I think it's a terrible choice of words.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah,
That's
No,
we
that's
know
true.
that we're not talking about getting rid of the police.
that's embarrassing.
Right.
And somebody mentioned something about Democrats are so fucking stupid.
Yeah, sometimes.
You know, I don't know if they have a bunch of people to sit around and come up with more ways to embarrass themselves. You know, to me, they're doing the same thing that Trump does. Somebody was saying that John Roberts would literally, the Chief Justice would literally let Trump get away with a lot of this stuff if he would just at least act like he was trying to follow some guidelines.
Right.
But because he's so out of bounds in what he does, even the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court has to rule against him.
Right.
And it's almost like they're saying, you know,
If you had done it this way, you could have got away with it.
you could have got away with
but,
it.
But
you know, even though it's
we
it's
shot
terrible.
you down. Right. We shot you down because you didn't do it right.
Right. And that's the way I feel about Democrats. It's like
Yep.
you literally have an opportunity to make all these different changes and make people feel good about it, but you constantly come up with stupid ways of wording it, stupid phrases, stupid catchphrases, and then you wonder why people look at it, oh hell man. I have seen so many people post stuff on defund the police. Well, you call 911 now and there's not going to be. That's not what they're talking about.
I know.
They're
But
simply
and that
saying,
was my question.
Well,
How do you feel
I
about
mean,
that?
I think it's
then
great.
you have right all these people. Well, if we don't have cops, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to rapists, and what's going to happen
Right,
when you
right.
get raped? And it's like, wait a minute,
They
you
don't do
didn't
anything now.
right? But also, those are the people who like never cared ever before,
Right,
and
right.
never believed women,
Right.
and yeah, that to me, somebody
those were the
mentioning
same
that-
people who were saying, well, most women are lying about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, but now you care.
Wait,
Okay, thanks.
Wait. Let's take that a step further. Even the ones that they believed and they did the rape kits on, there's thousands of rape cases in almost every jurisdiction that haven't even been processed. They found one. They found. I don't remember the number. I think it was 1,300 rape cases that had never been processed. They found them in an evidence room. Never been processed. So
to his credit, Adam Laxalt as AG actually pushed a lot of those old rape kits through, and that was very awesome. Thank you.
yeah.
But yeah,
So
I mean,
to me, that's funny.
It's
They're
not
even bringing
something
that up.
that the cops are really
Handling spectacularly.
And let's take it
So-
another step further, okay? So if there's murders out there, you're not going to do it. Well, how many people have they now found out were innocent on death row for murders because they had evidence and they railroaded these guys
Right.
and put them in prison? So
And
you're
even
not really
after they've
solving
gotten-
the murders anyway. You're
Even
just
after
getting
they've
credit
gotten
for it.
evidence that the guy was innocent, the
Right.
DNA evidence, and still in jail for what, 7
Right.
years later, and they're still.
And so these people are saying to themselves, well, yeah, but he was a bad guy. He probably would have got caught doing something else, and so they got him.
well, then you also
I
have the
get
people who are saying,
so-
well, if we don't have cops and we don't have all of this, what's to keep everyone from doing from committing crimes
Okay,
and whatever?
well, let's-
And you know what? Most people commit all the crimes that they want to already.
Well, let's take it from the top though. If you have social workers that are actually paid like they're supposed to be paid, and you have enough of them, and you have child protective service people,
services.
and you have teachers that get paid like they're supposed to get paid, and you have mental health professionals doing what they're supposed to be doing, you're going to have less crazy people out there. You're going to have less people committing crimes because these people are going to be guided at least in the proper direction so that they're not going to commit crimes. They're not going to be on that, what do they call it?
Which is what is happening now.
the
And I
pipeline?
don't
Right,
know.
in the
I don't know
pipeline.
if it's Albuquerque or all of New Mexico, but that's what they have decided to do now, and that's super awesome.
Yeah, there's a
Thank
lot
you,
of
New
communities that are
Mexico.
now thinking about that. But yeah, so if you ask me, what do I think about defunding the police? I think that's absolutely right.
Right.
They have made, and one of my Facebook friends brought up the point that I brought up before, which is you have, if you let cops do the stuff they're supposed to be doing and you stop making or letting governments use them as a revenue stream,
Right.
you're going to solve a lot of your problems
Yeah.
right there. Because you look at what these guys are doing. They know that they can make money for the city by arresting somebody for jaywalking. So
Right.
they arrest somebody for jaywalking. Okay? Now you created several problems. Number one, if the guy can't pay the fine, you now have a warrant for him and you can put him in jail.
Right.
Okay? The second thing is, he now has a criminal record. So that's horrible right there. And so you're spending, this is one of the reasons why we have so many fatherless families in poor areas, because they arrest them for bullshit and then put them in jail.
Yeah.
All so they can make this money that
Well,
they shouldn't be
especially in
making.
states that have for-profit prisons.
Yeah, that would. You don't
Yeah.
even want to get me started on
I know,
that
I know,
because
I know.
I fucking hate them.
Yeah.
I hate them. And when you look at the 13th Amendment and what they did so that they could keep
Having slaves.
having slaves, it's embarrassing. And so you would think that they would want to change that, but they really don't, because a lot when you I don't know, did you guys see the 13th?
Yes.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, you ought to
I
watch it.
will be watching.
Because basically, one of the things that's happening is that there's a lot of corporations, Monsanto, all these people that need people picking fruit and
Yeah.
vegetables and stuff like that, that need clothes made. They're actually using slave labor, these guys in the prisons.
Yep. Yeah, no, I was aware of that.
So there's so much tied into all these different things, and one of the reasons why you're getting so much pushback from rich people is because you're affecting their bottom line. They don't care about justice; they just care about the bottom line. And
Oh my God,
that's-
did you see the social distancing poster that I posted it on Facebook? There was a poster and it showed like how far you how far you
Oh,
need
yeah,
to
from
stand away, and in
and it had-
English it says like the length of skis. In Spanish,
length of what?
skis. So there was a photo of two people standing skis length apart, and then in Spanish it explains it in baskets of produce. And there's an illustration of that. Oh yeah, that's
so
tough.
they're,
The
they're
thing that-
assuming that Spanish people are stupid, and they assume that they're
that
picking
would
fruit. It's
that they're not skiing, they're picking
oh my
produce.
God,
And
that's gross.
yeah, that was a weird one.
The thing that bothers me, I guess, and more every day is that everything that's going on now, it's just trying to get us to not want the best for you or for you, just me.
Right.
I want the best for me, but I don't give a shit about you. I don't give a shit about you. And this rally this afternoon or this evening, to me is how do you not understand what this slimy puke is doing?
If they
Because
had
people
it
want
yesterday,
other people-
you probably would have actually gotten to see the Boogaloo.
People care about
sorry, say
what
that
makes
again?
The Boogaloo boys, you know who they are.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
ones that went
right,
to
right,
Civil War. If he had it yesterday, the rally like he originally planned,
Oh yeah,
it would have been ugly.
yeah.
It's already going to be bad
I
enough.
think it's going to be ugly tonight.
Well,
I
he
really do.
judges, and everybody, not everybody, but lots of people judge all of this stuff by what pisses other people off.
Yes.
Yes.
And then that becomes what they care about, like removing the rebel statue and changing that. I saw the first post that I saw about it was how dare they take away like the beloved whatever
Our heritage
and
yeah.
well, like this our beloved mascot, and I'm like, beloved, like, do you realize that like you clearly didn't play college sports
Yeah.
because everybody makes fun of that mascot. It's the corniest one
Yeah.
that exists.
Well,
And-
the whole thing though, somebody went through the whole history and how they got it, and all this benign bullshit. But the fact of the matter still remains: what does it represent? And they don't care what it represents.
No, they just care that
Wait.
you know, that the liberals liked it. They wanted this down. So they, like, it was a win for them. Doesn't
Right.
matter if we actually liked it or didn't like it, or that it was
I
corny
never
and
liked it.
stupid,
Back
and
in
that like
back in
the students actually
50s
hate
and
it.
60s, back in the 50s and 60s, there was a restaurant chain called Sambo's. You might be old enough to remember
yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
And what did they have for a spokesman or a character or whatever? Was, you remember the story of Little Black Sambo and was chasing the tiger, or the tiger was
Yep.
chasing him around? That was their logo. That's you know. And then they dropped that. We can't do that. And
But there had to be a big outcry for it
exactly.
before they did that.
Yeah, right. And you posted the thing about the guy from Chick-fil-A.
Oh no, I didn't.
No, I
Dirk
posted
did
it.
actually.
Oh, you posted it. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought you did.
No, I
Okay.
commented on it
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
because I was surprised actually by what was.
But I think that you were right when you said, they're losing part of their, and they're
I
the
don't
only
think
place to
so.
go.
I think that what he,
Wait.
I think that
No,
what
I
he
honestly
said,
believe they're losing money.
Yeah,
They've
I
been-
do too.
Because
yeah,
this has been going
you're,
on.
You're correct.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think that what he actually said, I don't think that he would have articulated it that way. If
But wait,
there
why not?
wasn't-
Everybody knows how much black people love fried chicken,
Wake a Volt.
right?
I think
That's
the way
what's
that he
going on in this
articulated
guy's
it,
head.
I think the way he articulated it, there had to be some thought there, and I think that.
Oh, that's why I said
had
it was
to be-
marketing. It was a marketing
I
deal.
don't think so. I don't think so because people actually got really pissed off when they stopped donating money to like anti-LGBTQ.
Yeah, but they started up again.
Did they?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, people were
And-
genuinely
But
mad
that's-
about that, which is so weird.
Yeah.
But
We don't want what's best for each other.
we don't want each other
We
to be
want-
happy.
Right.
But
and
it's-
the universal health care. Why not? Why wouldn't you want
Somebody posted something the other day, and I really feel this is true. They don't care what Trump can do for them. They only care that he is hurting the people that they want to be hurt.
right?
That's exactly what it
absolutely,
is.
I
But when they
believe that.
stopped donating money to those causes, I saw people who were genuinely mad about it, which is so weird. But I didn't, and those people said, I'm not going to go there anymore. But I didn't actually see any of those people not going there anymore. And none of my queer friends started going there.
Right.
It just didn't happen. So I don't see this as a marketing thing, and I just felt like the way that it was articulated.
Why don't you see it as a marketing thing, though?
Because I
the
feel
bottom
like-
line is money.
But I feel like the way that, like, what was actually said,
was
it didn't-
researched.
yeah, but it also it was a step too far to be bullshit. I felt because it wasn't just.
Well, you're saying he was sincere?
I mean, I can't know, but I felt like there was a level of sincerity because otherwise, I don't think that he would have said all of the things that he said.
Well, here's
I
the
think he
thing.
would have just been like, "Well, we like black people too. Okay, bye."
No,
No.
you can't do that. When,
No.
when you're doing marketing, you've got to.
Like, I don't think he would have doubled down to that degree. I don't.
I
he
do
had-
because
hopefully
it doesn't really hurt him, except for there's going to be some older white people that maybe
Not even older. I see people
Well,
my age and younger.
so
who would have
they might be
been
pissed off, but they're still going to go and
genuinely-
they're going to buy his product.
I
But
mean,
what's happened, I think, is that you have a lot of people that are really
Please don't
against
do that.
him.
That freaks me out.
Yeah,
drink
with two hands
water?
is like Trump.
oh. I was
but I
just.
really
I
think-
try to get it in front of me so
yeah,
that it
understand.
doesn't.
Thank you. Okay.
I think that the it's just the timing. You know, for 4 years he's been giving all this money to Trump, and now you have all this other stuff going on. You have all these people protesting, and I think you've had.
Does he donate specifically to Trump?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I don't
He's
know.
a huge Trump donor.
Yeah.
I had one of their sandwiches once when I was like a teenager and I didn't like it, so I don't know.
Look, the
I don't
The
go
only
to them.
reason
I
that
don't
he's
go to
doing
Hobby
this
Lobby. Anybody who's against,
They're losing money.
yeah, who's deliberately giving money to somebody who is.
I didn't
against-
know any of their politics,
like,
and it was literally
what's
the
his
only
name?
option,
Yeah,
and
he's
so
been-
I got one.
He's been given
And I
millions
didn't
of
like it.
dollars to Trump
Yeah.
over the last 4 years.
I mean, if I
and the
knew-
timing
if I'd
is
known anything
now all of a
like
sudden he's
that-
going to be doing all this stuff at this time just before the election. It's suspect.
Yeah.
To say the least. So I mean, maybe he was sincere. I doubt it because I don't know of anybody who was supported Trump for 4 years and now all of a sudden they have this complete, total turnaround. I'm not buying it.
Right.
Yeah.
It is possible. He could have been
Anything
enlightened
is
for some
possible.
reason. He might have fallen in love with a black woman or some shit like that. Or
All right, so if we're
Or adopted a black child,
move,
yeah,
if
no,
we're
I
gonna
don't know.
move
Or
to
Cuban
racial,
child.
so we're not former cops. We're also not presently or formerly black. So we were kind of.
You're
the-
not?
No, not. I'm not. Oddly.
I thought
This
she
is-
was an
You
albino.
haven't noticed the glow. But anyway, that was another reason that we were like disappointed that we didn't have you last week, because we both were saying like we want to be supportive, but you don't really know exactly what to say.
When you're
like
saying-
I said, I
you
have
don't-
my way.
We don't
that I
realize
can-
sometimes when we're saying stupid shit.
and when you try to make sure that you don't sound racist, you frequently end up sounding
Way
really,
worse.
really racist.
But you know,
But-
here's the way I look at that, though, because I've had friends ask me that question. You know, how should I support? What should I do? My whole thing is, what's your intent?
Right.
Because most people are good people and they want the best for people, and they say things because they've been brainwashed. I mean, we've all been brainwashed.
You
Okay.
bet.
We've been brainwashed for 400 something years about how we're the inferior race and all this other shit. But at the same time, what a lot of black people don't understand, and this is why, yes, we should be angry, but we should also be understanding to the point when you have to look at white people have been brainwashed for the same 400 years. Those are the images they saw on TV, in the movies, and read in books, and so over and over and over again, you get those really subtle biases,
Yeah.
and you don't even realize they're there. So the average person, I believe, I probably shouldn't say the average person, but I would like to think that the average person, when you explain to them these things, they go, oh.
Well, so
I got a perfect example.
But it has to do with the intent. If the person has a good
Right.
heart and you tell them that, they will understand and they will make an effort to correct.
So I mean, like I said, I try to, like, I come up with ways that I can try to relate, and that's the best I could, that was the best I could do between the two of us. But after the show, I talked to my sister, and
Is your sister black?
yes, my sister is black.
Has to say.
I know you. That's why I wanted to beat you to it.
Okay, yes, my sister is black, and my sister just opened. She just opened. It's called the Dog Spa. If you're on the East Coast,
Oh, cool.
she just opened her first dog grooming place. If you're in the Virginia area, check out the Dog Spa if you want to own, or if you want to go to a black woman-owned business, because we all should. Anyway, she's got in the window a big rainbow flag, because it is it's Pride Month. Happy Pride Month, everybody. So a gay couple came in to just see what kind of business it is, and they asked her, they thanked her for supporting, and asked how can they be supportive of her. And what she said was that, like, black people are all different people.
Yeah.
So she can't answer that question for black people. And so she said the best way to be supportive is to ask, because different people are going to tell you different things.
Right.
So, yeah, so
That's
No,
another one of the really big problems that we have is the fact that people want to think that all white people are the same,
Yeah.
all black people are the same, all
Yep.
gay people are the same. We're individuals, and we all have different feelings about, normally, depending on what the cause is, we'll all come together, like this stuff that's going on now. But I also think that for the really good causes, everybody who's got a good heart comes together and tries to support whoever it is.
Okay, I had a conversation a couple days ago, and this completely blew my mind. this is a white guy married to a black woman who has a daughter, mixed race daughter, black and white. And we were talking about the demonstrations and the stuff that was going on. And he goes, I just don't get this white privilege shit. I've worked for everything I've had. You know, I busted my ass. I don't have any privilege. And coming from him, just kind of like, and I used your example. And I said, so when you're driving down the street, there's a cop car behind you, what are you worried about? He goes, I'm worried about getting pulled over and getting a ticket. And I said, yeah, and a black person worries about getting pulled over and killed. That's white privilege.
Or getting arrested.
Yeah. And he's going, I
It
get
clicks.
it.
Right.
Yeah, it clicked for him.
It's funny. I had a friend who also had a black wife as well, and we got into it, and I ended up unfriending him because he was so adamant that there was no such thing as white privilege, and his wife chimed in, and she was like, yeah, what he's saying is bullshit, blah 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 blah, and I'm thinking to myself, what world do you guys live in?
His wife was agreeing with him, or wasn't?
She was agreeing with him.
Oh, okay.
She was agreeing with him, and he'd write to me and says, my wife said this and blah blah blah, and it's like,
Okay.
okay, if that's what you two want to believe, that's fine. I said, but if you take your wife and you drop her off somewhere down south, you're probably going to find out rather quickly within the first week or so of her being there, what you're saying is bullshit.
Yeah.
Did you post about the pastor who was saying that we should stop using the term white privilege and that it should be
Yeah,
the
white
white
blessing.
blessing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite posts.
Well, that was some like wacky off the
Okay,
wall
so-
shit. But
But
I read it. I'm super illiterate, but I buckled in for that one. Well, it was interesting. I mean, I would definitely not like to call it that. That's insane. But maybe we need to start calling it something else because
Stupidity?
because I just see so many white guys online who are so offended and so pissed off that we say
So
that there
what?
is white privilege.
So what?
And
if you explain it to them and they either understand or they don't understand. But you have to also remember that most of these people that we have these issues with, they're invested in that not being a thing.
right.
They're invested in this. So,
I mean,
and
just like
one of the
it's just-
problems that we have, we're talking about defunding, people don't understand the power of words. They don't get it.
Right. And
You know,
that's
I don't care how educated they are, they don't get it. When I say something to you, or if I'm saying something, I use certain words because I know you'll understand.
Right.
And if you don't understand, I know you will also ask me,
Right.
can you explain that?
right.
But when you're
but that's
talking to a
something
large
that's fairly
group of people,
unique about John.
yeah, well, that's something fairly unique about most of my friends.
Yeah.
But when you're posting something on Facebook or whatever, the choice of words that you use, not everybody understands what you're saying. But like I said, people that really have the intent of being good people, they will ask questions.
Yeah.
They'll want to know exactly what do you mean. I had a guy, one of my friends, he posted something about they were taking away one of the Florida teams used the term Gator bait. I can't remember if it was Florida State or whichever one it was.
Oh,
When
Gatorade.
No, Gator bait.
Oh, Gator bait. Yeah.
So
okay.
when they're playing against the other teams, they call them Gator bait and stuff like that.
It's the
And so-
Seminoles and the
so
the
they're
Gators.
now saying that they want to get rid of that phrase, and he was all pissed off. He goes through this long thing. He says, well, the person who came up with that was a black athlete that played for the school, and he blah 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 blah. And so I wrote to him and I go, so you're basically saying that you don't care about what the actual history of what that means is.
Right.
And he just went off. He said, "Get that bullshit out of here. You're full of shit," and blah, 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 blah.
That's like
So
saying
his
that
mom
because
actually
black
wrote
people
in.
use the N-word that
Right.
it's fine for everybody.
So his mom actually looked it up after when she saw the comments. She looked it up, and so she explained it to him. And he was still, after that, he was still jumping on my ass. Well, you're awfully silent. You know, that's a bitch ass move. How come you're not saying this and you're not? I said the reason why I'm not replying to you is, first of all, somebody already answered your question. Number two, that didn't seem to move you much one way or the other, because you still think it's an okay phrase to use. And thirdly, you started out by insulting me. If you don't want to be an adult and you can't grow up, then fuck you. I don't need to talk to you about this anymore. And he was still pissed off about it. So I finally just told him, just shut the hell up, and then I stopped following him.
Yeah.
But that just cracked me up. Your mom is literally telling you that gator bait used to be the black kids that these guys actually fucking used them to hunt for alligators in the swamps. They use black babies for that. And you don't see there's a problem maybe with that? Are you fucking kidding me? But they get so invested in stupid shit. Football team. Our football team uses gator bait, and a black guy said it, so it must be okay.
Yeah.
No, it's not okay.
Well, a friend of mine yesterday, one of her neighbors, black friend of mine, lives in Georgia. One of her neighbors has a lawn jockey, and
Yeah, those. God damn.
yes, apparently they still have them. And I guess she follows this woman on Facebook or just stumbled upon it. But this woman posted an article about, well, the article claims that lawn jockeys actually come from the northern U.S., that they didn't have them until recently in the South. And that they...
That's bullshit, because I've seen them when I was growing up and we lived in the South. I've seen them. So we're talking like...
Right. Well, according to this article, they were actually part of the Underground Railroad. And the original ones were so that you could find houses where you could swap out your horses. And then they started making some that were different colors so that you knew that you could get lodging this place and that this place would get you on a boat to Canada.
I actually vaguely remember
And-
there's a possibility that might be correct. I don't know.
But it did not start in the north, it started in the south.
Right.
Right. Well, anyway.
Because the
so-
Underground Railroad started in the South.
Well, so my friend commented, like, this is not true. This is, and it bothers me as your neighbor that you display this. And she just got jumped on. And it was so weird. Like, people just, it was immediately like this and this about Aunt Jemima and this, like, and I was, wow, everybody attacks.
There's some things that, and I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. One of the things that bothered me was the book Tom Sawyer. When they took the N-word, they rewrote it, took the N-word out of it. To me, that did more harm than good. And maybe I'm wrong, that's why I'm bringing it up. We need to be reminded sometimes just how big of an assholes we were. And,
Well,
and
here's
what that,
okay.
and that's
But
why I
you-
brought
you
it up.
bring up-
I'm asking.
Because this is, I guess the first term that came to my head was slippery slope. But
No, I know it is.
But here's where the problem comes up. They want to change stuff like that, but they don't want to accept the fact that they literally changed history books about slavery.
Right.
They literally changed laws and you know, all these things that refer to slavery, and they said, you know, those were the happiest times for black people and all this bullshit. But then they'll take that word out of that book, and to me, the reason it was in that book is because he was depicting life at that time.
Right. That was, I mean, if you,
So at least it was true.
but that's my point, and that it brings up the fact that this is the way we used to talk. It's part of our history. It's part of our, and unfortunately or fortunately, I mean, I know the Confederacy only lasted 5 years.
Yeah,
You've
that
seen all that.
was another good post. I love that.
I love that, man.
Yeah, it's our heritage. It lasted five
5
fucking years. I mean, give it a break, man.
Yeah. This show's lasted almost longer than that.
You know, something really interesting about that, though, when you were mentioning about black people use this word, so why can't everybody use the word, stuff like that. Well, I have a lot of female friends that
Let's
go
be clear,
around-
if somebody's watching from right now, that was not something I suggested.
Right, yeah. No. But I find it really interesting that people always bring that up. Well, if they use it, how come we can't use it? It's in the songs and blah, blah. I understand what you're saying, but I have a lot of female friends that go around and call each other bitches. You're not going to catch me calling a woman a bitch
Right.
because I was raised properly.
Right.
And this is something else that I struggle that they can't get the point, which is if you care about other people and you know that there's a large portion of those people that don't like the word, then don't fucking use the word.
Yeah.
Don't do things that are going to offend other people just because you think it's all right.
So what do you think about having it in the book?
The book was written. It should be in the book.
Right.
Now,
But
if you don't
it-
want to read the book, don't read the fucking book.
But that goes hand in hand with the other point that you were making. It's like we take these issues or these items individually, and it's not individually. It's part of the whole. In other words,
Well, but you
Oh,
have to
yeah,
understand when as things come up,
right.
then people address them because for the
Absolutely.
most part we don't even think about it.
Absolutely.
Who thinks about Tom Sawyer having the word in it?
Right.
Well, if you've read Tom Sawyer, you know what's in there.
Right.
But a lot of people haven't read it. They don't even know who Mark Twain is.
Yeah.
So, somebody sees something and go, "Oh, we got to do this because this is going to be." And I get what they, when they start calling people libtards and all this other kind of stuff, and they're so sensitive and shit like that. Sometimes that is true. You can be overly sensitive to certain things, but by the same token, you just use a little bit of humanity in it. Washington Redskins, get rid of the name. Gator bait, get rid of the phrase.
Yeah.
It's not.
But
It's
Right,
not
Why
going to
but
kill
can't we
you.
That's
call
what I
them
mean.
the DC Redskins?
If our history books were more accurate, all right. As a kid, I never learned about the Black Wall Street in Oklahoma and what went on there and the massacre. Juneteenth. I mean, I wasn't really aware of that until maybe 10 or 15 years ago. But growing up and I mean, I had a grandfather.
Well,
that,
nobody ever heard of it, and now Trump's made it so popular.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, thank God for Donald Trump.
So that's one thing in 3.5 years that he's done.
Oh,
But
man.
what I'm
But it's
saying
not the
is
only
that
thing he's taking credit for.
it's like people say, well, we can't do this because, or we can't do that. That's bullshit. We can do it if we want to. The whole defund the police. We could make that work if we wanted to. We can make healthcare work if we want to.
Right.
Quit spending money.
Reparations. We can make that work if we
We can
wanted
make
to.
that work too if we wanted to. The whole Medicare, the whole system of government, we just don't care enough.
It's not that we don't care. It's that we
Enough
want to
of us
piss
don't care.
everybody else off.
I don't care about pissing everybody else off.
Yeah, I don't either.
Well,
I
not
find-
necessarily.
No,
not
I'm at the
necessarily
age-
the
I'm at the
three
age
of
where it's
us,
about fucking
but
time.
Well, one of the biggest problems that we have in this country is fear. we're terrified of everything, and people don't want to admit that. Even the angry people that are talking all this shit, they're terrified.
Right.
Okay. For example, you're right. We can make Medicare for all. We can make that.
Right.
Oh, but that's socialist. That's communist. We actually have elements in the country that are already
The
socialist.
military,
Right.
fire departments,
And
roads,
but they
schools.
They cannot wrap their head around it because they've been brainwashed for so long to say communism and socialism are horrible and they will ruin your country and you'll be like Russia or you'll be like Venezuela. They talk all this shit and none of it makes any sense because they don't really understand the history or the process. They don't get it.
Right.
So
And it's not socialism or communism or capitalism. It's the corruption
exactly
that goes on.
Exactly.
That makes.
But if they knew
or
anything
breaks.
about the history, if they knew
Right.
anything about the actual political process, they would know that.
Right.
But they don't because they've been brainwashed all these years to say, oh, that is bad.
Right.
That word is bad.
But it's okay. I mean, you know, don't raise the minimum wage. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't. You know, I had to pay for my education. So should this person. It makes no sense. It's not
a lot
free.
of the baby boomers think that.
It's not
They got
free
all this shit,
education.
but they don't want anybody else to have it.
Wait, I got mine free.
Boomers.
I mean, I got my education through the VA.
Right.
You know, but I want an educated populace. I want the smartest people that we can have should be in this government.
But the people that are bitching the most about this shit are people that aren't smart.
That's right. And it's not. They're saying, well, who's going to pay for it? Free education. It's not free. Our tax dollars are going to pay for it. And I would rather use my tax dollars to pay for that than to bomb kids.
If you want to balance the budget, if you want to have money to pay for Medicare and all this other shit, you know where you can get it from? I tell you where you get it from, just like that.
Okay.
Fucking Defense Department's budget.
Oh yeah, but that's my point.
Police departments too.
That's my point. Is yeah, the fucking police don't need a fucking
6.7.
a tank.
Right.
You know, I mean, come on.
But I mean, just from practicality's sake, when you look at how much money the military and Dwight Eisenhower said this.
Yes, he did.
He said that one of the biggest threats to this country was the military industrial complex.
Right.
When you have an organization that can literally lose how many trillions of dollars? $30 trillion?
Yeah. 30 or 32, something like that.
$30 trillion. Totally unaccounted for. Disappeared. They don't know where it went. Are you fucking kidding me? Do you know how many things that could have funded?
Everything.
Everything. And nobody's saying anything about it. They bring it up every now and then. You see a news story here, a news story there. And the Pentagon is like, yeah, we lost some money. What can we tell you?
Yeah.
It's fucking amazing. When you look at, just look at the amount of money that was lost during the Afghanistan war.
Unaccounted for.
Unaccounted for.
Yeah.
They were going over there with literally millions of dollars in cash and giving it to those warlords to help bring them over to
Yeah.
our side. They just gave the money away. There was no accounting for it. So when you think about that $13 trillion, a lot of it probably went there.
And you're right, because I saw something published that what we should do is invade the U.S. and win the hearts and minds of the U.S.
Exactly. So, but getting back to the Defense Department, there are so many different problems with that. How many years were we in, didn't get a raise?
Yeah.
Every time they had a problem balancing the budget, they fucked over military people and they didn't give us a raise. And then some of the presidents every now and then would give us a little bullshit raise and so the pay would go up. But
So it was chump change.
yeah, it was chump change. And when the Defense Department gets all this money, it doesn't go to the people.
No.
It just goes to the new toys that the Pentagon
It
can
goes,
buy.
it goes to the contractors
It goes to the contractors.
that work for the military.
So when you have you see a thing in there for a $700 hammer, that's where it went. And they explain.
Because the guy who makes that hammer is from Kentucky.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what's going on. Is the
They were
money's-
actually explaining why they did that. I mean, it's really kind of a weird way that kind of makes sense why they do it when they're making these bills up and sending the bills out to the contractors, stuff like that. But bottom line is they're basically stealing money. The contractor's stealing money, and the military is allowing them to steal that money. And a lot of the people that are in the military leave the military and get jobs with those people. And you don't see this as a conflict of
or
interest.
they're in politics.
Or they're in politics. And you don't see this as a conflict of interest, you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
So,
Or you become a lobbyist. Yeah.
yeah. So I find, and then we're not even talking about the stuff like the F-35.
Yeah.
That still is not really ready to go, and it's been in development for what, 10, 15 years?
Yep.
They've wasted billions of dollars on this plane, and it still won't fucking fly. So when you look at stuff like that, and I'm not even talking about the people like our Green Beret, Delta Force, SEALs, these guys, they go through training that is worth hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, individually.
Yeah.
And they don't make shit. That's why they leave and go to Blackwater or some contractor and make 10 times more than what they were making before.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing. When I was in the Air Force, I think about all the stuff that I had as an officer. I didn't just have my primary job. I usually had 5 or 6 additional duties that I had to do.
Yeah.
And you don't get any extra pay for that. You don't get paid for overtime either.
No.
You might get combat pay. You know, you probably get you get money for a temporary duty station.
Right.
You might get a little bit extra money depending on where you live, the cost of living increase, stuff like that.
But you know what I got for combat pay? $65 a month.
See, that's embarrassing. But they're basically telling you that's how much your fucking life is worth.
That's exactly right. That's how much my life was worth.
That's how much your
$65
life
a
is
month.
worth.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing, and I don't understand.
You don't know, man. You weren't there.
So when I look at this stuff, when these people are talking about, when they talk about the police departments and they talk about military people, you ain't paying them what they're really what they're worth. I mean, now I got paid pretty well as a police officer, I think. But if you look at the fact that I went through 2 master's programs and I had 12 years of military service, you know, maybe not. But
Right.
you got a whole bunch of guys that have a high school education and they're making bank,
Well, the other
depending on
thing,
what the police department you work for.
the other thing is there's a lot of talk been going around about the training process for police officers, and they 6 months at the academy, isn't it, average? And
Something like that.
You've got hairstylists, you've got nurses, you've got all these other things that are like 2-year minimum.
Right, an associate's degree
Right.
is
Right.
about 2 years.
I honestly believe that you can probably teach a police officer what he needs in the 6 months, but I wouldn't teach them the stuff that they're teaching them,
Right.
and I would teach them in a different way.
Right.
And that's what I tried to do when I ran for sheriff. I wanted to change everything. There's a guy
Have you given
named-
any thought to running again?
No, hell no. Never, never.
Okay.
Wouldn't do it. First place, you'd have to worry about them getting into your life. You'd have to worry about them getting into your family's
Yeah.
life. You'd have to worry about all that stuff. You'd have to worry about people basically telling lies about you. You'd have to spend all your time defending all that shit.
Darkest
Anything that you
secrets.
ever did in the police department, and I wasn't perfect. I mean, I thought I was a pretty
Yeah.
good cop, but I mean, I still fucked
None
up
of us
every
are
now and then.
perfect.
They'd be bringing all that shit up.
Yeah.
It's just it's embarrassing. There was a guy named Richard Heckler who wrote a book called In Search of the Warrior Spirit. And Richard Heckler is like a 6th degree black belt in Aikido. And he developed this program to go into, he took it's a great book, you ought to read it,
Okay.
In Search of the Warrior Spirit.
Gotcha.
And
I have heard of the book.
I actually have 2 copies at home, so
Bring it.
I'll bring
I
it
would
in for you.
appreciate
I'll
that.
bring it in for you.
Yes.
You guys can read it
it's
to me.
I think you would like it too. I mean, it's a brilliant book. Basically, what he said was that he went and he did a study with a Green Beret troop, and he taught them Aikido. He also taught them what is it? Something feedback.
Biofeedback?
Biofeedback.
Yeah.
He taught them biofeedback. He taught them meditation. He taught them all these different things to actually make them better, use their bodies better, and think better, and to handle stress better. And it was incredible. He also had because I talked to him, and I also, he had another thing called something Trojan horse or something like that, but he had developed the same kind of thing for police departments. And I went to Jerry Keller when he was the sheriff, and I said, this is what we need to do. This would be brilliant, because I'm of the belief you don't flood neighborhoods with a bunch of cops, because the quickest way in most administration's mind, if we put more cops out there on the street and more people see them, that's a deterrent to crime.
Right.
I don't think that's true. What I think is true is that you have better trained police officers, and you teach them how to deal and communicate with people better, and therefore they will be able to go on these neighborhoods and these little communities, and they will be able to interact better with the people, and they will get more shit done. So I'd rather have less police officers that are highly trained, like Green Beret or
Yeah.
SEALs or something like that, as opposed to having just the average cannon fodder troops thrown out there. Because guess what happens when you do that? You have guys like Derek Chauvin kneeling on some guy's neck. That's what you end up with.
Yeah.
You end up with people because cops are human.
Yeah.
Let's admit that. Cops are human, and I understand that, and I appreciate that. I was a cop. I was human. I made mistakes too. I made bad judgment calls. I remember the first time I really got in trouble, I went to one of the casinos, and they had a guy that was drunk and acting crazy and whatever, and so I ended up trying to arrest him. And I did arrest him, but the first attempt didn't go very well. And he was acting crazy, and I told him to sit down, and he wouldn't sit down, and I got pissed off because he wouldn't sit down. So I grabbed him by his neck, and I was trying to force him down, and it was all on camera.
Yeah.
And so one of the people in security ended up calling and said, it wasn't people that were there, because they understood why I did it and
Right.
the circumstance that led up to it. But somebody came and was reviewing the tapes, and so they ended up calling, and so they called me in, and I ended up getting disciplined for it. And I deserved to get disciplined for it, because there were so many different things that I could have done. I have a black belt in karate. There's a lot of things I could have done, pressure points or whatever, to get the guy to sit down. I didn't use any of it because I lost my head.
Right.
Okay? And this, unfortunately,
But you can't do that as a retail clerk.
yeah.
Sorry.
But the point I'm trying to make is that here I am, fairly highly trained person, and I lost my head. So the more training that these people have, the less likely that's going to happen, because that never happened to me again. And I'd only been patrol, shit, man. At the time that occurred, I'd probably been working maybe 6 months. I'd probably just gotten off probation.
Wow.
So that was messed up. But like I said, cops are human. They're going to make mistakes. But if you give them training that minimizes the
And teach them de-escalation.
teach them how to control their stress, teach them how to communicate better, teach them how, because most cops, when they walk into a situation and a guy's belligerent, what's the first thing they do?
They get belligerent.
I'm going to fuck him up.
Yeah.
Because I'm a cop, I got a badge and a gun, you're going
Right.
to do what I tell you to
You
do, and
can't
if you don't
talk to
do
me
it,
like
I'm
that.
kicking your ass.
Yeah.
Okay? What happened after that incident with me is that I literally became the go-to guy for that
Crazy
whole area.
people.
When I was working, when they had crazy people, they called me because they knew I was starting my master's in counseling and educational psychology, and I knew how to talk to people.
Gotcha.
So I would just go in and I would talk to them, and almost every time, get them calmed down, we put the handcuffs on them or whatever we needed to do. We had I think it was a Form 8, Form 8 that we used, and have them go to a mental health facility or whatever. I never had any problems. Never. You have to know how to talk to people, and you have to know how to talk to individual people.
Right.
And that's what most cops don't know how to do. They tell you, okay, if you go into the black neighborhoods, you're going to deal with a bunch of black people, and those black people are like this, and this. And so they believe that. Because we had a lot of cops when I first joined the department, we were going through the first big growth spurt. And so we had a lot of guys who were coming from Midwest. Some of those cops had never really been around black people before in their lives. And so they get in and they go into training, and the training officers tell them, we're going to the West Side. Those black people are crazy. They will fuck you up. They will hurt you. You have to be strong. You have to show that you're tough. They were telling them all the stuff that they shouldn't have told them. You have to be cautious. You have to be safe. But by the same token, you got to know how to talk to the individual person.
Yeah.
Even gangbangers. I had gangbangers that I talked to them like people, and they just respected the fact that I talked to them like real regular people.
Yeah.
I didn't talk shit to them. I didn't tell them I was going to kick their ass. I didn't say, oh, you're a punk ass, Crip or Blood or whatever, and so I'm going to fuck you up. I didn't talk to them like that. I just say, hey, look, this is what we need to do.
Well, it's
Talk to me.
panic. It's panic and it's on both sides.
Yeah. And then, you have, they're supposed to be taking psychological tests. They don't do that. You go and you take a psychological test, there's not one person that I know that couldn't go and pass a psychological test.
Well, the average person knows what they want to hear.
They know what they want to hear. Exactly.
I mean,
so at some point, so that doesn't necessarily help. So that's why I say you have to change the training. You have to change the training to get them to at least know certain things. And the other thing that I wanted to do, and this is the last thing I'll say about the training, is that I also felt that if they had this training and they were much more equipped to communicate with people and handle stressful situations, their own stress and other people's stress, that they would be able to have more autonomy. But police officers, administrations don't want to do that.
Right.
What they want to do is they want to put as many cops out there as possible. They want to make sure that the sergeants and the lieutenants are in charge and that they really don't get to make decisions. And I think that's exactly the opposite way you should act, because if you're an individual officer and you go out on a call, you should be able to use your discretion and you should be able to make the call and you should be able to do what needs to be done to resolve the situation.
Right.
And now, the problem with that is that, and I told them this, that also means there's going to be greater consequences.
And what they do is, instead of making those particular officers or people responsible for their actions or accountable, they're just going to blanket and make up new rules that everybody has to
Right.
follow because this one idiot screwed everything up.
You know how big our when I first joined, the department manual was like that thick. When I left, it was like that.
Jeez.
I saw LAPDs. It was literally that big.
I can believe it.
It might be 2 volumes now for all I know.
Yeah.
And the fact, because this is what will happen, and this is where I came up with the whole idea of better trained police officers and give them more autonomy, but they also had to have more consequences, because they'd understand, like they say, with great power comes great responsibility.
Right.
Okay. But the fact of the matter is, if you go out and you do something wrong, what they need to do is they need to discipline you. They didn't do that.
Yeah.
What they did was they wrote another section in the manual that says, okay, nobody can do this. Well, you wouldn't have had to say that. You already said the guy couldn't do it. But, we always find, you're in the military, you know how that works.
Yeah.
We always find a way to get around that, okay?
Right.
So if they get around it, you slap them. You can't do that anymore. You know what the regulation said,
Right.
and you know what it meant, but because it wasn't specifically that,
Right.
and that, which is another problem with the qualified immunity. I don't know if you read that. Qualified immunity basically says if somebody does something that the manual kind of vaguely says is okay, even though they know it's wrong,
Right.
you know, because the manual didn't specifically say that particular thing wasn't right,
Right.
then you can't sue them.
Right.
And so
Because the manual doesn't say that you can't put your
Right.
knee on a guy's neck for 8 minutes.
right,
So,
exactly. So to me, the manuals don't need to be that damn thick.
Right.
You just need to punish the people, and it's like with any job. It happens everywhere. Every one of us has had a job like that.
Yep.
Some guy does something wrong, and they punish everybody.
Everybody.
None of you guys can do this.
right.
And that's not the way it should be. That guy did something wrong, you get him.
Well,
And
if-
everybody else will say, well, I'm not going to do that anymore because.
When your kids are growing up, you have to let them make a certain amount of decisions on their own.
Right.
Because if you don't, they will never learn how to make their own decisions.
And that's another problem with police officers, too.
Yeah,
You know,
that's my.
you always
that's
got
what
your
I mean.
sergeant, your lieutenant telling you what you should or shouldn't do,
Right.
or whatever, and so you never really worry about making decisions because you always somebody else is going to do it, or I'm just going to do it directly by the book and take the guy in, and then they can sort it out later on.
I've had people working for me, and I always tell them, I want you to have some autonomy. I want you to make decisions. 9 out of 10 times you will make the right decision. The time that you don't, we'll figure it out, we'll fix it.
Right.
But don't just sit there and go, well, nobody told me. Well, that's your job. You're a superintendent, you're a project manager. That's what you're supposed to do, is
Right.
make those decisions.
The single biggest problem with most police departments right now is they do not train them how to communicate properly to people, and they do not train them how to use critical thinking to solve problems.
Yep.
If you're a good problem solver and you're a good communicator, almost every good police officer you ever meet, well, every police officer you ever meet that's really good at their job, that's what they do.
Yeah. Well, we got to wrap it up again. Glad you're back. Happy birthday, man. How was
Glad
your
to
birthday?
be back. My birthday was awesome. I had
The whole family there,
I
huh?
had all of my kids together in the same place at the same time for the first time in almost 20 years.
That's cool.
It was amazing.
That's cool.
So, best
Anyway.
birthday ever.
Cool. You didn't bring us any cake or nothing?
No.
Selfish bastard.
Damn it.
Oh well.
I think it's going to be an interesting couple of months. I think
I'm pretty sure.
we're going to have to extend the show for 3 or 4 hours, I guess, or so.
I
just
don't
really
think it's
curious to
possible that
see-
it's not going to be an interesting few months.
I'm just really curious to see whether this administration can actually stop the bleeding and maybe come up with some semblance of competency.
I don't see it.
I don't either.
I don't see it at
but
all. I don't see how it's possible.
I've never seen a group of people step on their dicks more often
Yeah.
than this group of people.
And
This-
and you have to wonder. You have
just
to
hope we
wonder
get
the
to
people,
vote.
the people in the government that are not, that should be doing something about it that aren't. Got to be scared shitless.
Yeah.
I mean, it to me, it's like, okay, we got one bad guy in here, but if we do something about it, they're going to find out about all this other shit that we've been doing. That's just my.
There's one other thing that really bothers me is because I don't think enough people are talking about it. You see a story here, you see a story here, you see a story here. But one of the worst things that's happening right now is what the Republican Party is doing as far as voting is concerned.
Oh,
And from the time they started whining about voter fraud this and voter fraud that, and you finding out that most of the people that are getting caught for voter fraud are Republicans.
all right, I know.
You're finding out that they're closing the voting places so that you have to travel 60 miles.
160,000 people.
Right.
And they're
Are
not
going
just
to people
one
on the
voting
Republicans.
place.
They're taking people off the rolls because they say that their names, their signatures don't match, which
Right.
is in most cases is total bullshit.
Right.
They're telling them that they have to have a government issued identification, but they're not allowing government-issued identifications. They have to be a specific type of government identification, like a DMV, but they're closing the DMVs close to them.
Right.
So, I mean, I find this absolutely amazing that
I think
people
the
are
vote
not
by
up in
mail
arms
thing
about
is the
this.
way to go.
Yeah, now they're saying that, well, you're going to have more voter fraud because if you vote by mail, which is bullshit.
We currently have 0.00001% of voter fraud.
Exactly.
So that's like what, 1/10,000th of a percent? So
And they're also saying that the organizations that are supposed to be counting the votes are so incompetent that they can't figure out that person's not alive, they're dead.
yeah,
Really? That's embarrassing.
I know.
So,
Well,
yeah.
and what happened? What happens?
And we've had vote by mail forever, because that's how most military people vote.
I did it.
But it's always been an option.
Yeah. So really?
Well, then, so if it's always been an option, then what we should be doing is not so much fighting for vote by mail, but educating people that they can request a ballot.
I mean,
By
I don't
mail.
know. Has it always been an option? You've been around since
Yeah.
we've been
it's
allowed
always
to
been
vote, right?
Pretty much. And the other part of that is that
I was around when you
we
got
have
to
now
vote.
proven that you can hack into the voting booths
Yeah,
by computer.
yeah.
So why wouldn't you want to have, I mean, whether you're Republican or Democrat, why wouldn't you not rather have vote in by mail, which is easier to find voter fraud, than to worry about somebody hacking into a computer system?
Because chances are I'll lose. That's what comes out. Anyway, that's it. We're done. Thank you all for coming back, and for all of you that haven't been watching all these months, keep it up. And
It's an honor just to be nominated. And don't.
We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing. We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing. Everyone can see we're together as we walk on by, and we fly just like birds of a feather. I won't tell no lie. All of the people around us, they say, can they be that close? Just let me state for the record, we're giving love in a family dose. We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing. Sing it to me. We are family. I got all my sisters with me. We are family. Get up, everybody, and sing. Living life is fun, and we've just begun to get our share of this world's delight. High hopes we have for the future and our goals in sight. We know we don't get depressed. Here's what we call our golden rule. Have faith in you and the things you do. You won't go wrong. Oh no, this is our family jewel.